how much longer will this united front of the players' union stay united as bills pile up, as cars get repossessed, as they begin to get kicked out of their apartment complexes? How much longer until the 10th, 11th woman on the roster, the ones who make eight?
That's the question keeping WNBA executives awake at night. On the surface, the players' union looks unstoppable. 97% voted to authorize a strike. But behind the scenes, a serious fault line is forming. Two-thirds of the league's players aren't part of Unrivaled. They aren't collecting those $220,000 paychecks for 8 weeks of work. Instead, they're stuck at home, watching their bank accounts shrink, while the league's stars continue to thrive.
Article by the Sports Business Journal. Talks between the WNBA and Players Association have stalled, and the union's, quote, upper hand at the bargaining table is slipping as soon as the players will be faced with the question of how long they can hold out, according to Adam Minter of Bloomberg News. It is a necessary but dispiriting thought, considering that the leverage was well.
The Sports Business Journal just dropped a report that should send shockwaves through the Players Association. Their breakdown is blunt. The union's leverage is evaporating fast. Here's the part most people miss. Caitlin Clark changed the game. Her record-breaking ratings, sold-out arenas, and massive media deals gave these players real power for the first time in WNBA history. But make no mistake, that leverage isn't permanent. And right now, we're watching the clock tick down in real time.
We mean Caitlin Clark showed up and they suddenly had some leverage in their pocket. Publicly, the Players Association is presenting a united front, but the outward appearance masks a complex private reality. Many players can't afford to wait indefinitely. Unrivaled provides a lens for understanding the divide. This season, 54 top WNBA hoopers, about a third of the WNBA's active rosters in 2025, are participating in Unrivaled. For them, Unrivaled and its big paychecks of roughly $220,000 for an 8-week season are a nice cushion.
Let's break down the numbers. In 2025, 54 of the top WNBA players, about a third of all active rosters, were playing in Unrivaled, earning roughly $220,000 for 8 weeks. That's a solid cushion when negotiations drag on. But what about the other 100 players? The ones on $80,000 base salaries, the role players, bench contributors, the 11th and 12th women on the roster. They don't have endorsement deals. They don't have unrivaled contracts. They're the ones feeling the financial squeeze first.
They're going to dry up on their savings, aka they're going to need money, aka they got bills. A WNBA lockout or strike also poses economical risks for the WNBA. The league is in a much stronger financial position than its players to withstand a protracted delay or cancellation. Well, no shit. Pardon my language. Duh. Now, Natasha Cloud actually spoke about this before, and we've talked about this, that the players in Unrivaled, they don't really care about the other 100 players.
And here's where things get really intriguing. Natasha Cloud has actually spoken about this before. The players in Unrivaled, they're in a completely different position. Let's be honest, they're largely insulated from what happens to the rest of the league. If there's a lockout, they're fine. They can just extend the Unrivaled season, make extra money, keep playing basketball. Life goes on comfortably. Meanwhile, the role players face a completely different reality. Bills stacking up, car payments looming, rent deadlines approaching. That's when even a 97% show of unity can start to crack.
Want to get paid all the money that they feel that they missed during the NIL era. That's what a lot of this is, along with ego. A lot of this is players that missed the NIL era, sees Caitlin Clark. They don't want to admit it, but she's the dollar signs here. And they say, well, this is our only chance, really. This is our only chance that we're going to be able to cash in.
At its core, this all boils down to ego and missed opportunities. Many veteran players completely missed out on the NIL era. They watched college athletes rake in millions while they were grinding overseas for $70,000 a year. Then Caitlin Clark arrives, and suddenly real money is entering the league. For these veterans, this is their one shot, maybe their only shot, to cash in. So, they're swinging for the fences, pushing for 30% of gross revenue, and a $10.5 million salary cap. The risk? They could very well be overplaying their hand.
WNBA could be weeks away from delaying season. Despite releasing the schedule earlier this week, the WNBA likely needs to agree to a CBA by February to start the season on time. The WNBA wants everybody to believe the 2026 season will tip off on May 8th. It asserted as much with an announcement of a 44-game slate and a statement that explained in part the move was to allow, quote, essential planning to begin. The reality of where collective bargaining agreement negotiations stands paint a different.
The league's latest offer isn't bad by any stretch. Maximum salaries start at $1 million and could rise to over $1.3 million with revenue sharing. They're proposing roughly 70% of net revenue over the life of the deal. The salary cap kicks off at $5 million in year one and grows alongside league revenue, a huge jump from current figures. But the union is pushing for more. They want the deal calculated off gross revenue instead of net, a key distinction that could potentially cost the league hundreds of millions.
Get the point and send us something better. But remember, Breanna Stewart yesterday said, oh, they're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. How can you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you liar? Whatever. In that proposal, the union is seeking a 30% share of the league's gross revenue and a salary cap of $10.5 million. The league's latest proposal includes a max base salary of $1 million, which would increase to more than $1.3 million with revenue share. The league's proposing roughly 70% of its net revenue over the span of the deal. The salary cap would be at $5 million in year one and would grow in tandem with the.
Now, let's break down what's really at stake. According to Annie Costabile, the WNBA could be just weeks away from a potential season delay. On the surface, the league released its schedule this week, 44 games starting May 8th. But behind closed doors, the picture looks very different. As of January 23rd, the Players' Union is still waiting on a response from the league to a proposal they submitted nearly a month ago, before Christmas. Weeks have passed through the holidays and New Year, and here we are in late January with nothing. Radio silence.
Free agency would be early March, and that's if the ink dries on a new CBA by early February, giving the WNBA the rest of the month to plan and conduct an expansion draft. Multiple league sources believe the best case scenario would be early March, given the ink dries by early February. We are about 2 weeks away from early February. February's in 7 days, 8 days. 2 weeks, we're sitting what, February 5th, February 6th? They need to get a deal soon before we start pushing the schedule back.
And this is where Breanna Stewart's optimism starts to feel a bit off. She said just yesterday, they're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But how can anyone see light when the league hasn't even responded to a proposal that's been sitting unanswered for a month? That's not progress, it's a stalemate. Meanwhile, general managers are left completely in the dark about expansion draft rules. Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire need clarity to construct their rosters, yet without a finalized CBA, they can't make a single move. Even the core designation, essentially the WNBA's version of an NBA franchise tag, is still under negotiation, and that decision could dramatically affect which players are available for the expansion draft.
However, in the middle of free agency, front offices will also be preparing for the 2026 WNBA draft, currently held April 13th. The league has never lost games to a work stoppage in its 29-year history. The next 2 weeks will be an indicator of whether its 30th season will be the first time it does. If the deal doesn't get done soon, might not be a lockout, there might not be a strike, but at the bare minimum, they're going to need to delay the season or start chopping some games off. Instead of a 44 game, it'll be a 38 game. They missed the first 6 games because they push it back 2 weeks. They mixed the first 10 games because they push it back a month.
Multiple league insiders say the earliest free agency could realistically begin is early March, but that hinges entirely on a new CBA being finalized by early February. With just 7 days until February, that leaves maybe 2 weeks to reach an agreement, finalize all the legal language, and get signatures in place. After that, the league would still need the remainder of February to plan and execute the expansion draft. In a normal year, free agency kicks off in early January, with major signings usually wrapped by early February. But this year, the WNBA is way behind schedule. Training camp is set to start April 19th, and the draft is April 13th. Everything is now falling behind.
How much longer will that 97% of players that agreed with the strike dwindles to 90%, dwindles to 80%, dwindles to 65%? Might not be able to vote again. I doubt they can vote on that again. But the rumblings and the talk behind the scene, it'll get back to them. And they'll say, damn, we're not really united anymore. These girls fractured and they don't agree with it anymore. And they're kind of starving and they need to pay for this and she needs to pay for that. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I appreciate it.
Here's the reality. If a deal isn't reached soon, the league isn't necessarily facing a full lockout or strike, but a delay is almost inevitable. At minimum, the season could start late, or the full 44-game schedule could get trimmed. Maybe it drops to 38 games if the first 6 get missed, or 34 games if the delay stretches a month. In its 29-year history, the WNBA has never lost games to a work stoppage, but the next 2 weeks could decide whether the 30th season becomes the first to do so. And that brings us back to the core question: how long will that 97% unity hold? What happens when it slips to 90%, 80%, 65%? Even if the players can't vote again on strike authorization, whispers from the bench will reach leadership. The stars will see their leverage eroding as more role players withdraw support. Those same role players are being asked to risk their financial security so Breanna Stewart and Nneka Ogwumike can negotiate for maximum salaries they'll never personally touch. The proposed CBA could boost base salaries from $80,000 to $250,000, but only for some. The pressure is real, and time is running out.